hunting spot always seems to be 3 hours from home, which means you have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, because he's a masochist. And so our duck hunting spot, I don't remember the name of the place, but was way out in this marsh. So you would have to go through this long, we'd drive to this long channel, paddle through this channel, big marsh, duck hunting blind. So it was like a 2.5, 3 hour trip total. So we get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I made this trip 1,000 times. I started going hunting when I was maybe 9. First with a BB gun. I would shoot songbirds and decoys. And then at some point I passed hunter safety and graduated to my father's bolt action 20 gauge shotgun that every man in my family had learned to hunt with. And then at some point I bought my own gun that I took with me. And through the years it was always the same. You would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, get in the car that you'd packed the night before and drive. You put everything in the canoe and you start paddling down this channel. And this channel was lined by a couple of banks with woods on either, with 4 woods, and then there's a big marsh and forest on either side. This channel is made bigger by a family of beavers that's living there. There's a series of 3 beaver dams that have made this channel into basically a small pond. That pond supports deer and muskrat and mice and rabbits, and those things support coyotes and owls and hawks. So you would get out to the swamp at fuck all in the morning. And my job as the little one in the boat was to shine a light around the canoe to make sure we didn't hit anything. And also my job was to watch out for the beavers. Because beavers are very territorial. If you get too close to them or their dam or their lodge, they'll just slap the water and splash all over the boat. It's real fun when it's dark at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I would shine around and see all the coyotes hunting and the skunks and the raccoons and everything else. And my job was to, spot the dams so we could get over them. So this whole process, paddling and climbing over beaver dams, takes about an hour. And after that, there's a sea of cattails. 2 miles into those cattails, there's another pond. That's our hunting spot. So we have to get out of the boat and drag it for another hour and a half through these cattails, occasionally, sinking up to your belly button in muddy water. And at some point, it gets to be 4 or 5 in the morning, and we're standing. This happens all the time. We would stop like 2/3 of the way through this trip, and you would stand and eat breakfast. And I remember looking up at the sky when it was clear, and it was fall. Duck season happens in the fall, and so Orion is in the sky prominently. And I remember looking up and seeing that big belt and his bow and just thinking, fuck, it's cold out here. I wrote one joke just so that I could feel better about this whole thing. So you get out to this pond, and then we would, it was miserable work dragging this canoe. It's 120 pounds of equipment with the canoe and 5 dozen decoys and 1,000 guns and 1,000,000 pounds of ammunition. So you drag this boat through the swamp, and finally we get to this pond and we lay out our 5 dozen decoys for whatever reason. And then you sit there and you wait for the sun to come up. And you wait and you listen, and occasionally you get buzzed by ducks that sound like fighter jets. And then at some point, the sun starts to come up, and everything in the swamp wakes up. The first thing that wakes up in a swamp, in this swamp anyway, are sandhill cranes. Sandhill cranes are the biggest, most annoying bird on the planet. And they have the weirdest, most annoying call on the planet. I can't imitate it. Go home, Google it. It does sound exactly like a pterodactyl. Imagine what you think a pterodactyl sounds, like that mixed with a dolphin. Anyway, so these sandhill cranes get up and they'll just circle around the swamp and wake everything else up. So you'd see geese in far-off ponds just get up in the dozens and hundreds and fly off to raid some empty cornfield. And you would sit and wait for the sun to come up so you could start shooting. So that happened every year. When I was 15 or 16, my dad and I were hunting by ourselves. My brother had since moved out. So it was just the two of us. And it was a pretty ordinary day. We did the whole march. We got out to our blind. It was a clear, beautiful day, which is terrible for duck hunting. So we sat and got sunburnt all day. Till about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we had a small flock of geese fly toward our pond, and we managed to call them down until 3 of them came over our heads to land in our decoys. Neither my father or I are great marksmen, so we took 3 shots and 1 goose fell. It's a bad hit ratio. But it was clear when the goose hit the water that it wasn't dead. And it's an unfortunate part of hunting that sometimes you shoot an animal and it doesn't die. So we get in our boat and we go to get this goose, and it's trying to swim away, and we decide that the best way to dispatch it is to shoot it again. So I take a shot at this goose, and it stops moving. So we pick it up and we put it in the bottom of the boat, and we head back to our blind. And a couple minutes later, I can hear this rhythmic tapping on the bottom of the boat. It's not my dad and it's not me. So I look under the camouflage, and sure enough, this goose is flapping its wings feebly because it's still alive in the bottom of this boat. So we have to think of a new way to dispatch this goose. We have it in the blind now, we can't shoot it. So we think that the best way to kill it is going to be to smash its head on the prow of the boat. So my father picks it up, this 30-pound bird, and hits its head in the boat. And it goes limp, and he throws it in the bottom of the canoe. And a couple minutes later, I can hear this hissing sound, this gasping sound, and I look underneath again, and sure enough, this goose is very much still alive and coughing up just blood, right? So I pick up the goose out of the boat, and I hit it on the canoe again, and it just spits blood, and more blood. And in desperation, my father takes the goose and he holds it under the water, figuring that even a waterfowl will drown at some point. It does, eventually. Helps that its lungs are probably half full of blood at this point. So the water didn't take long. So my father basically holds this 30-pound thrashing animal under the water for 15 or 20 minutes until it drowns. And he picks it up, and he puts it in the boat, and he smokes 2 cigarettes back to back, and we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it the rest of the day. We don't talk about it the rest of the weekend. We don't talk about it ever again. Except to say, That was kind of fucked, right? Yeah, totally fucked. And that was it. We both just killed this thing with our hands and we couldn't talk about it. But I stopped hunting after that. I didn't come back the next year. Surprise, surprise. I didn't come back the year after that either. I didn't come back for a few years. I heard they had done something to this swamp. That they'd cleared it out or something. So I went back. Whew. I went back and they cleared out all the beaver dams and tracked out all the beaver. And with them, with them had gone, this is not the part of the story where I was anticipating crying. I knew it was going to happen at some point. I was not sure where it would happen. So with them went the rabbits and the mice and the skunks. Sorry. And as you can see, it hurt that marsh was gone. And as much as I want this to be a story about conservation or whatever, it's not. Ugh. No, it turns out this story is about love and loss. I watched that goose die, and I never had to mourn it because I saw it happen. I can joke about that goose to this day, and I do. And you have seen me do stand-up can attest. That is my favorite joke to tell. But I still can't talk about this marsh to this day without crying because I didn't see it die. It just disappeared. Thanks so much, you guys.